China's frequent incursions and intensifying maritime operations near Taiwan's territorial waters, Taiwan's top leadership has issued one of its most urgent warnings to date, indicating that China may be preparing for a full-scale invasion of the island.
Did you know a group of tiny windswept islands in the Philippines, places most of the world has never heard of, are now at the center of a global power struggle between China, Taiwan, and the United States? Welcome to Batanes, a remote and rugged province lying just 125 miles south of Taiwan. While the world watches tensions escalate across the Taiwan Strait, the Philippines is stepping forward in a way that's impossible to ignore, and Batanes is suddenly in the international spotlight. It's all about location. These islands may be quiet, but they're strategically explosive. Nestled close to Taiwan and sitting right along one of the world's busiest and most contested waterways, the Luzon Strait, Batanes has become a potential flashpoint in the ever-growing standoff between Beijing and Taipei. With China growing more assertive, not just toward Taiwan, but also across the South China Sea, the Philippines has had enough. Backed by its oldest ally, the United States, Manila is rethinking its defense game. And it's doing so with bold new moves. Forget diplomacy behind closed doors. This time, the Philippines is putting boots on the ground and eyes on the horizon. The plan? Strengthen defenses in the far north, especially around Batanes. For the past 2 years, U.S. and Filipino forces have conducted back-to-back joint military exercises here. Combat drills designed not just to train, but to prepare for the unthinkable. This isn't symbolic. The Philippine military is reinforcing its northern frontier, sending more troops to Batanes and turning these remote islands into a fortified zone. The message to Beijing? We're watching, and we're not alone. In just a year, the sleepy islands of Batanes have transformed. New naval bases are rising. Washington is helping fund infrastructure upgrades, runways, ports, supply depots, and communications facilities. What once looked like a peaceful fishing community is morphing into a modern-day defense outpost. It's not just preparation, it's deterrence. The construction of a joint U.S. and Filipino facility on Itbayet, Batanes' northernmost island, is no accident. Just a stone's throw from Taiwan, this base is strategically located near key maritime routes, perfect for monitoring movements and responding to crises, whether humanitarian or military. Back in 2023, the Philippine Navy planted its flag on Mabulas Island, opening a naval station stocked with supplies for emergencies and possibly more. The U.S. even called it a weatherproof warehouse, ready to keep equipment safe during storms or conflict. Since early 2024, joint patrols have ramped up in these waters, with U.S. and Filipino ships keeping close watch just 100 kilometers from Taiwan. And with China's eyes on the region, the Philippines isn't blinking. A new Coast Guard post on Itbayet is now gathering intelligence on threats from piracy to smuggling and, yes, foreign military intrusion. Make no mistake, this is no longer just a regional matter. In 2022, when China boosted its forces near Itbayet following U.S.-Taiwan talks, the Philippines didn't hesitate. It opened a station on the island and made it clear, this is sovereign territory and we will defend it. Itbayet lies in the Luzon Strait, a narrow waterway that's vital to global trade. It's also dangerously close to China's infamous 9-dash line, which claims much of the South China Sea. This isn't just a local squabble. Freedom of navigation, digital communication, and international peace are all on the line. The Batanes Islands are now part of a much bigger puzzle, the first island chain, a U.S. strategy to contain China's influence across the Pacific. The nearby Bashi Channel is a vital maritime choke point. If war were to break out, this is where it could start. And while China eyes it for potential blockades or naval moves, the Philippines and the U.S. are making their own preparations. Farther south lies Fuga Island, a tiny patch of land in Cagayan Province, but one with outsized importance. The U.S. now has access to this island, which sits beside both the Luzon Strait and the Bashi Channel. This location offers a crucial vantage point for controlling sea lanes and launching counter-operations if tensions erupt. And it doesn't stop there. Under the Expanded Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or ECDA, the U.S. and the Philippines are pouring resources into military bases across northern Luzon, particularly in Cagayan and Isabela. These bases are the backbone of a new defense strategy aimed directly at China's growing ambitions. The world may have overlooked Batanes for years, but not anymore. These islands are no longer just a scenic outpost in the Philippine North. They're becoming a front line, a place where diplomacy, deterrence, and determination collide. Here's something few people realize. While the South China Sea grabs headlines, much of the U.S.-Philippines military buildup is actually happening hundreds of miles away, in the country's far north, right on Taiwan's doorstep. And that shift speaks volumes. Recent moves by Manila aren't subtle, they're deliberate. Joint U.S. and Filipino military exercises have grown larger, more frequent, and far more focused on defending the northern frontier. That's a telling change in strategy, and it's aimed directly at one looming possibility: a Taiwan flashpoint. Originally, the U.S. was granted access to 5 key bases across the Philippines under the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or ECDA. Then, in a game-changing move in 2023, the Philippines added 4 more, 3 of them in northern Luzon, including the newly reinforced runway in Palawan and strategic outposts in Cagayan and Isabela. This wasn't a coincidence. It was a signal.
By giving U.S. forces greater access to bases near Taiwan, the Philippines has repositioned itself as a frontline player in a broader Indo-Pacific defense strategy. While EDCA officially supports training, disaster relief, and humanitarian missions, the infrastructure being built, large runways, upgraded ports, reinforced hangars, tells a dual-purpose story. Yes, they can deliver aid during typhoons, but they can also host fighter jets and military transports at a moment's notice. That dual use isn't lost on anyone, especially not Beijing. From China's viewpoint, these so-called preparations look a lot like encirclement, a slow but steady effort by the U.S. and its allies to lay down the groundwork for rapid intervention in the event of a Chinese move on Taiwan. Not long ago, it seemed like the Philippines was leaning toward a friendlier, more cooperative relationship with China. Manila pursued diplomacy, trade, and avoided direct confrontation. But in a dramatic pivot, the government changed course, fast. Instead of deepening ties with Beijing, it doubled down on its alliance with Washington. And now, Manila isn't just hedging, it's choosing sides. That choice is most evident in the north, where dual-use airstrips, ports, and military outposts are rising from the ground. Local leaders frame these developments as part of disaster preparedness, and they're not wrong. But the reality is far more layered. The same infrastructure helping during a storm can serve in wartime too, and everyone involved understands that. This is where it gets tricky. The Philippines is dealing with 2 strategic fronts. One, the South China Sea, where Chinese vessels continue to test Manila's claims in its exclusive economic zone. 2, the Taiwan Strait, where any flare-up could pull the entire region into crisis. By shifting attention north, the Philippines risks thinning its presence in the west, leaving vulnerable waters exposed. It's a tough balancing act, and there's no easy answer, but one thing's certain: the U.S.-Philippines alliance is becoming more active, more complex, and more permanent. This isn't just about 2 nations cooperating, it's about where they're cooperating and why. For Washington, the Philippines offers unmatched geography. Its northernmost islands are close enough to Taiwan to matter fast. And with tensions mounting in East Asia, that proximity makes the archipelago a linchpin in America's Indo-Pacific strategy. For Manila, there's opportunity. The partnership brings training, funding, technology, and much-needed modernization. But it also brings risk. The Philippines is no longer a passive player. It's stepping into a role with global consequences. As geopolitical tensions surge between the U.S. and China,
two pressure points dominate the landscape: the South China Sea and Taiwan. And while the Philippines has long focused on defending its claims in the West Philippine Sea, there's now a notable shift northward toward Taiwan. This evolution came into sharp focus during the most recent Balikatan exercises, the joint military drills between the U.S. and the Philippines. This year marked a turning point. For the first time, Taiwan-related conflict scenarios were included in the training. That's no small change. It signals that the alliance is expanding its scope from local territorial defense to preparing for a possible regional conflict with global implications. In late April, things got real. U.S. forces deployed their cutting-edge Nemesis system on Bataan Island, part of the northern Batanes province. The mission? A simulated anti-ship strike. It was the kind of operation that would be essential if a crisis erupted across the Taiwan Strait. And it didn't happen in isolation. At nearly the same moment, a Chinese aircraft carrier made its way through the Luzon Strait, the very waters that separate Taiwan from the Philippines. The overlap was no accident. It was a calculated display from both sides. The operation, codenamed Commodog 9, was more than just muscle flexing. It showed a high level of joint coordination across all domains: air, land, sea, and even cyber. This was not practice for practice's sake. It was proof that the U.S.-Philippines defense relationship is deeper and more agile than it's been in years. For the Philippines, this marks a major strategic pivot. Where the main concern once centered on Chinese incursions in its exclusive economic zone, now there's a bigger question emerging. What if Taiwan is attacked, and what if the U.S. responds? Until recently, those questions were whispered in policy circles. Now they're being addressed openly. And quietly, decisively, Manila is adjusting its posture, not just to defend itself, but to be ready for what could happen across the channel. This is no longer just about fishing boats and sandbars. It's about missiles, ships, and strategy. It's about proximity, preparedness, and alliances. The Philippines isn't just securing its borders anymore. It's preparing for its role in the Pacific's most volatile flashpoint.